So today's day two, and let me hear. Am I audible or not? Mm, studio, 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 studio. Hello. Hello. Okay, so I'm audible. So let's continue what I was doing last year. So let's continue. Manifestation. No, I don't think I will do anything like manifestation. Mm, yeah. There goes in the world a notion that scholars should be recluse, valedictorian, as unfit for any handiwork or public labor as penknife for an axe. The so-called practical man sneer at speculative men as if because they speculate or see they could do nothing. I've heard it said that clergy who are always more universally than any other class, the scholars of their day are addressed as women, that the rough, spontaneous conversation of men they do not hear, but only mincing and diluted speech. They are often virtually disfranchised, and indeed there are advocates for their celibacy. As far as this is true of studious classes, it is not just and wise. Action, action, action is with the scholar subordinate, but it is essential. Without it, he is not yet man. Without it, thought can never ripen into truth. Whilst the world hangs before the eyes as cloud of beauty, we cannot even see its beauty. Inaction is cowardice. But there can be no scholar without the heroic mind, the preamble of thought, the transition through which it passes from the unconscious to the conscious is action. Only so only so much do I know, and I have lived. Instantly we know whose words are loaded with life and whose not. The world, the world, said of the soul or other me, lies wide around. Its attraction are the keys which unlock my thoughts and make me acquainted with myself. I launch eagerly into this resounding tumult. I grasp the hands of those next to me and take my place in the ring to suffer and to work, taught by an instinct that so solve the dumb abyss, be vocal with speech. I pierce its order, I dissipate its fear, I dispose of it within the circuit of my expanding life. So much of life, as I know by experience, so much of wilderness have I vanquished and planted, or so far have I extended my being, my dominion. I do not see how any man can afford, for the sake of his nerves and his name, to spare any action in which he can partake. It is pearls and rubies to his discourse, drudgery, calamity, exasperation, want, an instructor in eloquence and wisdom. The true scholar grudges every opportunity of action passed by as a loss of power. It is the raw material out of which the intellect molds her splendid products. A strange process too. This by which experience is converted into thoughts. As mulberry leaf is converted into satin, the manufacture goes forward at all hours. The actions and events of our childhood and youth are now matters of calmest observation. They lie like fair pictures in the air, not so with our recent actions, with the business which we now have in hand. On this, we are quite unable to speculate our affection as yet. Circulate through it, we no more feel or know it than we feel the feet or hand or the brain of our body. The new deed is yet a part of life, remains for time immersed in our unconscious life. In some contemplative hour, it detaches itself from the true life, like a ripe fruit, to become a thought of the mind. Instantly, it is raised, transfigured. The corruptible has put on incorruption. Henceforth, it is an object of beauty. However, base its origin and neighborhood, observe too the impossibility of antedating this act in its grub. State, state it cannot fly, it cannot shine, it is a dull grub. But suddenly, without observation, the self-same thing unfurls beautiful wings and is an angel of wisdom. So is there no fact, no event in our private history which shall not, sooner or later, lose its adhesive inert form and astonish us by soaring from our body into empyrean, cradle and infancy, school and playground, the fear of boys and dogs and ferules, the love of little maids and berries, and many other facts. Fact that once filled the whole sky are gone already. Friend and relative, profession and party, town and county, nation and world must also soar and sing. Of course, he who has put forth his total strength in fit action has the richest return of wisdom. I will not shut myself out of this globe of action and transplant an oak into into a flower pot, there to hunger and pine, nor trust the revenue of some single faculty, exhaust one vein of thought, much like those Savoyard who, getting their livelihood by carving Sephardists and smoking Dutchmen for all Europe, went out one day to the mountain to find a stock and discovered that they had whittled up the last of their pine trees. Authors we have in number who have written out the vein and who, moved by commendable prudence, sailed for Greece or Palestine, follow the trapper into the prairie, or ramble round Algiers to replenish their merchantable stock. If it were only for vocabulary, the scholar would be covetous of action. Life is our dictionary. Years well spent in country, labors in town, in the insight, into trades and manufactures, in frank intercourse with many men and women, in science, in art, to the one end of the mastering in all their facts a language by which to illustrate and embody our perception. I learn immediately from any speaker how much he has already lived to through the poverty of splendor of his speech. Life lies behind us as the quarry from whence we get titles and copstones for the masonry of today. This is the way to learn grammar, colleges and books only copy the language which the field and the work are made. But the final value of action like that of books and better than books is that it is a resource. That great principle of undulation in nature that shows itself in the inspiring and expiring of the breath, in desire and satiety, in the ebb and flow of the sea, in day and night, in the heat and cold, and yet more deeply ingrained in every atom and every fluid, is known to us under the name of polarity. These fates of easy transmission and reflection, as Newton called them, are the law of nature because they are the law of spirit. The mind now thinks, now acts, and each fit reproduces the other. When the artist has exhausted his materials, when the fancy no longer paints, when thoughts are no longer apprehended and books are weariness, he has always the resource to live. Character is higher than intellect. Thinking is the function, living is the functionary. Stream retreats to its source. A great soul will strong to live as well as strong to think. Does he lack does he lack organ or medium to impart his truth? He can still fall back on his elemental force of living them. This is a total act. Thinking is partial act. Let the grandeur of justice sign in his affair. Let the beauty of affection cheer his lowly roof. Those far from fame who dwell and act with him will feel the force of his constitution in the doings and passages of the day better than it can be measured by any public and design display. Times will teach him that the scholar loses no hour which the man lives. Herein he unfolds the sacred charm of his instinct, screened from influence. What is lost in similarness is gained in strength, not out of those on whom system of education have exhausted their culture comes the helpful giant to destroy the old or to build the new, but out of unhandled unhandled savage nature, out of terrible druids and berserkers, come at last Alfred and the Shakespeare. I hear, therefore, with joy whatever is beginning to be said of the dignity and necessity of labor. To every citizen there is virtue, yet in the hoe and the spade, for learned as well as for unlearned hands. And labor is everywhere. Welcome, always we are invited to work. Only be limitation observe that man shall not for the sake of wider activity sacrifice any opinion to the popular judgment and modes of action. I have now spoken of education of scholar by nature, by books, and by action. It remains to say somewhat of his duties. They are such as become men thinking. They may all be comprised in self-trust. The office of scholar is to cheer, to raise, and to guide man by showing them, by showing them, showing them, by showing them facts amidst appearances. He plies the slow, unhonored, and unpaid task of observation, Flamsteed and Husserls in their glazed observatories catalogues the stars with the praise of all men, and the results being splendid and useful, honor is sure. But he, in his private observatory, cataloguing obscure and nebulous stars of the human mind, which as yet no man has thought of as such, watching days and months, sometimes for few facts, correcting still his old records, must relinquish display and immediate fame in the long period of his preparation. He must betray often an ignorance and shiftlessness in popular arts, incurring the disdain of the able who shoulder him aside. Long he must stammer in his speech, often forego the living for the dead, but yet he must accept how often poverty and solitude for the ease and pleasure of treading the old road, accepting the fashions, the education, the religion of society. He takes the cross of making his own, and of course, the self-accusation, self-accusation, the faint heart, the frequent uncertainty and loss of time, which are the nettles and tangling vines in the way of the self relying and self directed, and the state of virtual hostility in which he seems to stand to society and especially educated society. For all this loss and scorn, what offset? He is to find consolation in exercising the highest function of human nature. He is one who raises himself from private consideration and breathes and lives on public and illustrious thoughts. He is the world's eye, he is the world's heart, he is to resist the vulgar prosperity that retrogrades ever to barbarism by preserving and communicating heroic sentiments, noble biographies, melodious verse, and conclusion of history, whatsoever oracle the human heart in all emergencies, all solemn and all solemn are as uttered as its commentary on the world of actions. This his soul receive the impart and whatsoever new verdict reason from her inviolable seat pronounces on the passing men and events of today. This his soul hear and promulgates. This being his functions, it becomes him to feel all confidence in himself and to defer never to the popular cry. He and he only knows the world. The world of any moment is the merest appearance, some great decorum, some fetish of government, some ephemeral, ephemeral dread of war, or man is cried up by half mankind and cried down by the other half, as if all depended on this particular up or down. The odds are that, the odds are that the whole question is not worth the poorest thought, which which the scholar has lost in listening to the controversy. Let him not quit his belief that pop gun is pop gun, though the ancient and honorable of the earth affirm it to be crack of doom, in silence, in steadiness, in severe abstraction. Let him hold by himself, add observation to observation, patient of neglect, patient of reproach, and bide his own time. Happy enough he can satisfy himself alone that this day he has seen something truly. Success treads on every right step, for the instinct is sure that prompts him to tell his brother what he thinks. He then learns that in going down into the secrets of his own mind, he has descended into the secrets of all minds. He learns that he who mastered any law in his private thoughts is master to that extent of all men whose language he speaks, and of all into whose language his own can be translated. The poet, in utter solitude, remembering his spontaneous thoughts and recording them, is found to have recorded that which men in cities vast find true for them also. The orator distrusted at first the fitness of his frank confessions, his want of knowledge of the person he addresses, until he finds that he is the complement of his hearers, that they think he is worse because he fulfills for them their own nature. The deeper he dives into his privatest, secretest, present presentiment, presentiment to his wonder, he finds this is the most acceptable, most public, and universally true. Universally true. The people delight in the better part of every man feels. This is my music. This is myself. In self trust, all the virtues are comprehended. Free should be scholar, be free and brave, free even to the definition of freedom, without any hindrance that does not arise out of his own constitution. Brave, for fear is thing which scholar by his very function puts behind him. Fear always springs from ignorance. It is a shame to him if tranquility and amid dangerous times arises from the presumption that, like children and women, his is a protected class, or if he seek a temporary peace by diversion of his thoughts from politics or vexed question, hiding in his head like an ostrich in flowering bushes, peeping into microscopes and turning rhymes as boy whistles to keep his courage up. So is the danger a danger still? So is the fear worse? Men like let him turn and face it. Let him look into its eye and search its nature. Inspect inspect its origin. See the whelping of this lion, which lies no great way back. He will he will then find in himself a perfect comprehension of its nature and extent. He will he will have made his hands meet on the other side and can henceforth defy it and pass on superior. The world is his, who can see through its pretension. What deafness, what stone blind custom, what overgrown error you behold is there only by sufferance. See it to be a lie, and you have already dealt it its mortal blow. Yes, yes, we are the crowd. We are trustless. It is a mischievous notion that we are come late into nature. That world was finished a long time ago, as a world was plastic and fluid in the hands of God. So it is ever to so much of his attributes as we bring it to ignorance and sin. It is flint. They adapt themselves to it as they may, but in proportion as a man has anything in him divine, the firmament flows before him and takes his signet and form. Not he is great who can alter matters, but he who can alter my state of mind. They are the kings of the world who give the color of their present thought thought to all nature and all art, and persuade men by cheerful serenity of their carrying the matter that this thing which they do is the apple which the edges have desired to pluck, now at last ripe and inviting nations to harvest. The great man makes the great thing. Wherever MacDonald sits, there is the head of table. Linnaeus makes botany the most alluring of studies and wins it from the farmer and herb woman. Davy, chemistry and caviar, fossils. The day is always his. who works in it with serenity and, and great aims. The unstable estimate of men crowd to him, whose mind is filled with a truth, as the hipped waves of Atlantic follow the moon. Eliminate the okay, 25 minutes. What the hell did I do? For this distress, for this, for this distress. The reason is deeper than can be fathomed, darker than be enlightened. I might not carry with me the feeling of my audience in stating my own belief, but I have already sown the ground of my hope in adverting to the doctrine that man is one. I believe man has been wronged. He has been wronged himself. He has almost lost life that can lead him back to preorigi- pre- prerogative prerogatives. Men are become of no account. Men in history, men in the world of today are bugs, are spawned and called the mass and the herd in century, in millennium, one or two men. That is to say, one or two approximation to the right state of every man. All the rest, behold, in the hero or the poet, their own green and crude being, ripened, yes, and are content to be less, so that may attain to its full stature. What a testimony, full of grandeur, full of pity, is born to the demand of his own nature by the poor clansmen, the poor partisans, who rejoices in the glory of his chief. The poor and the low find some amend to their immense moral capacity for their acquiescence in a political and social inferiority. They are content to be brushed like flies from the path of great person, so that justice shall be done by him to that common nature which it is the dearest desire of all to see enlarged and glorified, the Son themselves in the great man's light, and feel it to be their own element. They cast the dignity of men from their downtrodden downtrodden selves upon the shoulders of hero, and will perish to add one drop of blood to make that great heart beat. Thus giant sinews combat and conquer. He lives for us and we live in him. Men such as they are very naturally sick money or power, and power because it is a good as good as money, the spoils so called of office. And why not? For they aspire to the highest, and this in their sleepwalking, the dream is highest. Wake them, and they shall quit the false good and leap to the true, and leave governments to clerks and desks. This revolution is to be wrought by the gradual domestication of idea of culture. The main enterprise, the main enter, the main enterprise of world for splendor, for extent, is a building of men here. Here are the materials strewn along the ground. The private life, the private life, the private life, the private life of one man shall be more illustrious monarchy, more formidable to its enemy, more sweet and serene in its influence to its friend than any kingdom in history. For man, a rightly viewed, comprehended the particular nature of all men, all each philosopher, each bard, each actor has only done for me, as by delegate, what one day I can do for myself. The books which once we valued more than the apple of the eye, we have quite exhausted. What is that but saying that we have come up with the point of view which the universal mind took through the eyes of scribe. We have been that men and have passed on first one, then another. We drain all cisterns and waxing greater by all these supplies. We crave the better and more abundant food. The man has never lived that can feed us ever. The human mind cannot be enshrined in a person whose soul set the barrier on anyone sides to his unboundable empire. It is one central fire. It is one central fire, which flaming now out of the lips of Etna lightens the caps of Sicily, and now out of the throat of Vesuvius illuminates the tower and vineyard of Naples. It is one light which beams out of thousand stars. It is one soul which animates all Mary. But I have dwelt perhaps tediously upon this abstraction of the scholar. I ought not to delay longer to add what I have to say of nearer reference to the time and to this country. Historically, there is thought to be difference in the ideas which predominate over successive epochs, and there are data of marking the genius of classic, of romantic, and now reflective of philosophical age. With the views I have intimated of oneness or the identity of mind through all individuals, I do not much dwell on these differences. In fact, I believe each individual passes through all three. The boy is Greek, the youth romantic, the adult reflective. I deny not, however, that revolution in leading idea may be distinctively enough traced. Our age is bewailed as the age of introversion. Must that need be evil? We, it seems, are critical. We are embarrassed with second thoughts. We cannot enjoy anything for hankering to know whereof the pleasure consists. We are lined with eyes, we see with our feet. The time is infected with Hamlet unhappiness. Ciclide or with a pale cast of thought. It is so bad then. Sight is the last thing to be pitied. Would we be blind? Do we fear at we do we fear least? We should outsee nature and God and drink to try. I took upon the discontent of literary class as a mere announcement of the fact that they find themselves not in the state of mind of their fathers and regret the coming state as untried. As a boy dreads the water before he has learned that he can swim. If there is any period one would desire to be born in, is it not the age of revolution, when the old and the new stand side by side and admit of being compared, when the emergencies, when the energies of all men are such by fear and hope, when historic glories of old can be compensated by the rich possibilities of new era. This time, like all times, is very good one if we but know what to do with it. I read with some joy of auspicious sign of the coming days as the glimmer already through poetry and art, through philosophy and science, through church and state. One of these signs is, is the fact that the same movement which affected the elevation of what was called the lowest class in the state assumed in literature a very marked as benign unaspect aspect instead of the sublime and beautiful, the near, the low, the common was explored and poetized. That which had been negligently trodden underfoot by those who were harnessing and provisioning themselves for long journeys into far countries is suddenly found to be richer than all foreign parts. The literature of poor, the feelings of the child, the philosophy of the street, the meaning of household life are the topics of the time. It is a great stride. It is sign, is it not, of new vigor. When the extremities are made active, when currents of warm life run into the hands and the feet. I ask not for great, the remote, the romantic, what is doing in Italy or Arabia, what is Greek art or provincial ministerially. I embrace the common. I explore and sit at the feet of the familiar, the law. Give me insight into today, and you may have antique and future worlds. What would we really know the meaning of the meal in Farkin, the milk in the pan, ballad in street, the news of boat, the glance of the eye, the form and the gait of the body. Show me the ultimate reason of of these matters. Show me the sublime presence of highest spiritual cause lurking as always it does lurk in these suburbs and extremities of nature. Let me see every trifle bristling with the polarity that ranges it instantly on the eternal law. And the shop, the plow, the ledger refer to like cause by which light undulates and poets sings, and the world lies to longer, a dull miscellany and lumber room, but has form and order. There is no trifle, there is no puzzle, but one design unites and animate the farthest pinnacle and the lowest trench. So for English, this would be enough. Now I'll try to speak in Gujarati. It's almost 45 minutes, right? But I have to try something new. Okay, it's 40 minutes. So I'll ask Lord, give me copyright free Gujarati literature. अरे रे फकीरी हाल अरे उल्कत अय बेगम લીલી દિલબર હતું મઝાલીમ હતું જે બેહિશ્ત થઈ જનાહંત ફકીરી હાલ મારો છે ગયું જિંદગીનું નામ જહાંગીર બેપરવા તો લોંડી ઝવેરચંદ મેઘાણી would be good for me, right? हम तो मालूम है जन्नत की हकीकत, लेकिन दिल के खुश रखने को गाली भी एक ख्याल अच्छा है। Let me try it. वस्ल में रंग उड़ गया मेरा, क्या जुदाई को मुंह दिखाऊंगा। कहिएगा उससे किस्से मजनू, यानी पर्दे में गम सुनाइएगा। बेखुदी ले गई कहाँ हमको, देर से इंतजार है श्रम का, हम फकीरों से बेसदाई क्या सरान बैठे हो, जो तुमने काश उसकी रूबरू ना करने के। क्या क्या प्राय मांगे है खलवत में, शेख जी जाहिरा। थोड़ा सा सारी रात जो पकता रहा है दिल, तो सुबह तक तो हाथ लगाया न जाएगा। सब्र देख ले, किसी ने भी ताजा हुआ है जा, फिर हमसे सपना हाथ Let's end it for today. I don't find it where